Alpatov and my partners Emma Lutz and Luke Walker are arguing the negative case. A decade ago, President Obama signed the USA Freedom Act into law. It is hailed the biggest intelligence reform in 40 years, and this act is considered the first major pro-privacy change to the U.S. intelligence law since 1978. The Freedom Act reauthorizes the Patriot Act, which was signed into law after 9/11. Though the Patriot Act has a goal to strengthen measures against terrorism, money laundering, and special scrutiny of foreign jurisdictions in America, the Patriots Act has sacrificed the rights of the citizens. The Freedom Act is a huge step into the right direction to protect citizens while also preserving public safety. My opponents argue that the United States federal government should substantially curtail its domestic surveillance. However, I argue against this resolution because our domestic surveillance policy has already been curtailed recently, and it addresses the doubts of the affirmative case. I will ask the question, why should we go through the process of signing another law when we have the Freedom Act, an act that protects privacy and preserves public safety while curtailing the controversial Patriot Act? What does it mean to curtail? Curtail means to make less by, or as if by cutting off or away some part, Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Substantial, considerable in quantity, significantly great, Merriam-Webster Dictionary. I'll present the following harms that the affirmative case hasn't stopped. Substantially curtailing domestic surveillance will cause disbalance. Most American citizens care about privacy and safety. Both values are mentioned in the Constitution and are outlined and emphasized. The Fourth Amendment states that the right of the people to secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized, the U.S. Constitution and other key American writings. The preamble of the Constitution says that we people must ensure domestic tranquility, the U.S. Constitution and other key American writings. I find it hard to believe that my opponents are de-emphasizing safety with their policies. Significantly curtailing domestic surveillance will throw off the balance of protecting privacy and safety in the Freedom Act. My opponents also argue that we shouldn't be surveying our citizens. Just because they are citizens of America does not disqualify them from being terrorists. A Texas Army veteran killed 14 people in New Orleans, and an American soldier detonated a Cybertruck filled with explosives outside the Trump Hotel. My third harm against my opponents is that they have an inadequate solution. My opponents haven't outlined a law that would address their concerns, nor do they even know that there was a law in place that protected freedoms while allowing domestic surveillance. They're completely clueless. My solution is instead of curtailing the Freedom Act, which is the law in act right now, we keep it because it addresses my opponent's concerns and it protects privacy and safety. The advantages of our Freedom Act are numerous. The U.S. Freedom Act does not allow for bulk collection. The biggest change instituted by the Freedom Act puts an end to national security agencies' bulk collection of U.S. call metadata. The Freedom Act requires phone companies to provide records to the government on a targeted case-by-case basis upon obtaining judicial approval from that FISA court, which means that there must be warrants. Right? This law protects the Fourth Amendment by using warrants. The second advantage our country has is it protects the Fourth Amendment. One must ask, does the U.S. Freedom Act protect individuals' privacy rights under the Fourth Amendment? Yes, it does. By barring the government from collecting bulk telephone metadata under Section 215 program and having the telecommunication providers hold and query this data, this takes great strides in strengthening privacy safeguards for individuals. The goal of the new USA Freedom Act was to create a technical solution that enables the government to still obtain necessary phone records essential to the investigation with the use of warrants involving international terrorism while increasing privacy and civil liberties protections. Intel.gov. The Freedom Act protects the Fourth Amendment because the government has to use warrants and a legitimate reason to get your data from phone and technology companies. In conclusion, the United States federal government should not substantially curtail its domestic surveillance. Judges, I urge you to vote against the resolution. The case that my opponents have outlined will harm our country. They don't even have a solution on how to mandate the resolution. It was never outlined in their case. We have a Freedom Act that was signed into law a decade ago that addresses even my opponent's concerns. And most of all, the Freedom Act has significant advantages for our country. My opponents are insistent on protecting the Fourth Amendment, and I totally agree. The Freedom Act protects the Fourth Amendment. But what about domestic tranquility? What about protecting life? Does the affirmative team even have a significant reason to curtail the Freedom Act? I ask these questions so that you judges can realize that the affirmative team can't answer them. Some values in the Constitution will be lost if domestic surveillance is substantially curtailed. Robin will come up to rebuttal my case, and that's why I urge you judges to keep my case in mind. I now stand ready for cross-examination.
Are the judges ready? Is the timer ready?
Yes.
Is the opposing team ready?
Yes, sir.
So you stated that the current laws that have been passed protect the Fourth Amendment, correct?
Yes, sir.
If it does protect the Fourth Amendment, well then why doesn't the NSA have warrants in every case before they do in-depth searches on the citizens? Because the Fourth Amendment is granting right to warrant, or the need for a
The
warrant
Fourth
to
Amendment is
search.
granting right for search and seizure as long as they're a warrant. And when you talk about the NSA and use their website to get your information, their website is outdated. It's before 2015 when the Freedom Act was passed.
See, that's interesting because when it says update December 21st, 2024, that's after 2015. But anyway, I will continue with my questions. So if the Freedom Act increases freedom, well then why are we being censored more now than ever?
You're talking about freedom of speech. I'm talking about Fourth Amendment right now.
And I've changed the question, so will you answer my question? If it protects the right to free speech in America, the Freedom Act, well then
Freedom Act
why are we being
protects-
censored now more than ever for what we say?
Freedom Act, remember, Freedom Act protects privacy and safety. Privacy and safety. Privacy under the Fourth Amendment, safety under the Domestic Tranquility Clause in the preamble. So this is not about free speech. I don't know where you're getting free speech.
Would you consider domestic tranquility to be tied to free speech, to be able to say whatever we want to say?
It has some ties into it. but-
Well then, so that proves my case. Why are we being censored now more than ever?
But
If it
remember, you
increases
outlined the Fourth,
freedom of
your
speech-
first point in your
Will you
entire
please
debate
answer my
was the
question?
Fourth Amendment.
I need you to answer my question.
I am answering your question.
No.
The Fourth Amendment was the first point you outlined in your 1AC, all right? You didn't outline your First Amendment, nor did you define your First Amendment.
The First Amendment is, we all know what the First Amendment is. Anyway, just because it has been curtailed, why shouldn't we still curtail it?
Because
Continue
you're taking the time to curtail a law that has balance with pro-privacy, which you have been arguing for, and safety. You lift up
It
pro-privacy,
doesn't grant that.
you lose
But it hasn't
safety,
granted that.
right?
It hasn't granted that, though.
Yes,
It
it
hasn't
has.
granted privacy at all. We're being censored now more than ever.
You're
Can
talking
you
about
explain
freedom of
that?
speech again. I'm talking about search and seizure and warrant of information. That's completely different than free speech.
They're both correlated together. Okay, I will continue with my last question. Should we trust, and do you trust, President Obama to secure our safeties and to continue to promote privacy? Do you?
President Obama
Do you-
is a
It's a,
human being.
it's a yes or no question, sir.
Let me answer my
Sir, it's a
question.
yes or no question. Do you or do you not trust President Obama to make us safe and protect our
I
privacy?
trust President Obama to make certain right decisions for our country. He might not make all the right
It's
decisions, but he
pretty
can make
black and
certain
white.
ones.
It's yes or no. I rest my case.